Thank you so much for that, Teacher Faith. Now let's proceed to the next rationalized question. Who was the grandfather of Jose Rizal who served as the captain municipal of Binian? A. Domingo Mercado, B. Francisco Mercado, C. Clemente Mercado, or D. Juan Mercado? Yes, it is letter D. Juan Mercado. Now, who is Juan Mercado? Juan Mercado is the son of Francisco Mercado and grandfather of Jose Rizal, who served as the Gobernador Silio or Captain Municipal of Binian. So Domingo Mercado was not the grandfather of Jose Rizal because Domingo Mercado is the great-great-grandfather of Rizal, which is a Chinese immigrant entrepreneur. Then Francisco Mercado was also the first Francisco of the family, the son of Domingo Mercado, and great-grandfather of Jose Rizal. Then it is also not Clemente Mercado because he's the son of Francisco Mercado and a brother of Juan Mercado. Now, let's proceed to the next rationalized question. What was the best poem ever written by Jose Rizal? Is it A. La Indolencia de los Filipinas, B. A la Juventud Filipina, C. Mi Ultimo Adios, or D. Mi Primera Inspiración? Yes, it is letter C. Mi Ultimo Adios. Now, what is Mi Ultimo Adios? So, Mi Ultimo Adios, that is the last and farewell poem expressing love for the Philippines. He most famous and considered as the best of Dr. Jose Rizal. The Mi Ultimo Adios is written shortly before his execution in 1896 and also is a poignant expression of his love for the Philippines and his unwavering commitment to its freedom. This poem, filled with power, imagery, and symbolism, articulates his deep patriotism and his willingness to sacrifice his life for his country. And also it is considered his best because of his emotional intensity, its masterful use of language, and its lasting impact on the Filipino people. And also it became the anthem for the Philippine Revolution and continues to resonate as a powerful symbol of national identity and love of country. So it is not La Indolencia de los Filipinas, it's because it is a socio-political essay published in La Solidaridad in Madrid in 1890. Also, it is not A la Juventud Filipina, it's because it is an inspiring poem that states that the Filipino youth are capable of great heights. And it is not Mi Primera Inspiración, it's because it was the first poem written by Dr. Jose Rizal dedicated to his mother. Now let's proceed to the next question. Macamisa was an unfinished literary work of Rizal. Now, what type of literary piece was it? Is it A. Poem, B. Short story, C. Song, or D. Novel? Yes, it is novel, letter D. Now, what is the novel of the literary work of Rizal, or the literary piece of Rizal? The novel Macamisa, or Macamisa, meaning to say mass or to attend mass in Tagalog, is an unfinished novel by Philippine national hero Jose Rizal, and it's considered his third novel following Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo. Unlike his other two major works, which were written in Spanish, Macamisa was initially drafted in Tagalog and showcasing Rizal's command of his native language. So this novel, the Macamisa, is a statement that Macamisa is an unfinished third novel by Jose Rizal following Noli Me Tangere, and El Filibusterismo is incorrect, because while Rizal did write in Tagalog, and there are fragments of his writings that might have been part of an early draft or different work, there's no established scholarly consensus recognizing a complete or even partially substantial novel by Rizal entitled Macamisa. The claim of it being his third novel is not supported by historical evidence or Rizal's known works. The information represented mixes the facts that Rizal uses Tagalog with an absentated claim regarding full-length novel. So Macamisa is not a poem, short story, or song because it lacks the defining characteristics of each genre. So a poem relies on poetic devices like meter, rhyme, and using imagery to create an artistic expression of ideas and emotions. And Macamisa, while using descriptive language, doesn't employ those poetic techniques in a way that it defines as a poem. And also, it is not a short story because it is a self-contained narrative with a limited number of characters and a focused plot. And Macamisa even also is not in complete form. It suggests broader narrative scope and character development beyond the constraints of short story. Then it is not a song also because a song is a musical composition with lyrics and a melody. Macamisa has no musical elements. Its structure and content clearly point towards a novel format. The next question is, who ordered Jose Rizal to be shot in Bagong Bayan by firing squad? Is it A. Governor General Ramon Blanco, B. Governor General Eulogio Dispohol, C. Governor General Camilo Polavieja, or D. Governor General Rafael D. Izquierdo? Yes, it is letter C. Governor General Camilo Polavieja. Now, who is Governor General Camilo Polavieja? So, Governor General Camilo Polavieja was a Spanish general and Governor General of the Philippines from 1896 to 1897. His governorship was marked by a brutal crackdown on the Philippines Revolution, characterized by intense military campaign and the execution of many Filipino revolutionaries, including Jose Rizal. Governor Camilo de Polavieja's governorship of the Philippines in 1896 to 1897 was a period of intense violence and repression during the Philippine Revolution. Polavieja, a Spanish general, adopted a brutal strategy to quell the rebellion, and also his administration oversaw widespread military campaigns that resulted in numerous Filipino deaths. Significantly, his governorship is inextricably linked to the execution of Jose Rizal, a pivotal event that further fueled the revolution. So Polavieja's harsh methods, while aiming to suppress the uprising, ultimately proved ineffective and in achieving the lasting peace and contributed to the escalation of the conflict. So the governor who ordered Jose Rizal is not Governor General Ramon Blanco. It's because he's the one who approved the request and gave permission to Jose Rizal to travel to Cuba as a volunteer doctor in the Spanish Army. While also it is not Governor General Eulogio Dispohol, it's because he's the governor who sent Rizal to exile in the Pitan. Then it is also not Governor General Rafael de Izquierdo. It's because he was the Governor General during the Cavite Mutiny, which led to the execution of 41 of the mutineers, including the Gomburza martyrs. Now let's proceed to the next rationalized question. Jose Rizal's baptismal certificate was signed not by the priest who baptized him, but his successor. Now, who was it? Is it A. Father Leoncio Lopez, B. Father Pedro Casanas, Letter C, Father A. Rufino Calantes. Or letter D, Father Manuel Burgos. Yes, correct. It is letter A, Father Leoncio Lopez. Now, who is Father Leoncio Lopez? Father Leoncio Lopez was a Spanish Franciscan priest in the Philippines during the late 19th century. He is known primarily for his association with Jose Rizal, specifically for his role in the events leading up to Rizal's execution. Lopez was Rizal's friend and confidant in, and he was also the instrumental in trying to help Rizal escape the death sentence he received. Also, Father Leoncio Lopez's significance in history lies in his close relationship with Rizal and his efforts to save Rizal from execution. But also, as a friend, as a confidant also, he played a crucial role in Albert ultimately unsuccessful role in the events leading up to Rizal's death. While his attempts to intervene in Rizal's behalf demonstrate a degree compassion of and perhaps even defiance of the colonial authorities, the outcome underscores the futility of such efforts against the backdrop of the Spanish colonial government's determination to execute Rizal. His actions highlight the complex dynamics of friendship and loyalty within a context of political oppression. So it is not Father Pedro Casanas, it's because he's Rizal's godfather during his baptismal. Then it was also not Father A. Rufino Calantes, it's because he's the one who baptized Rizal on June 22, 1861. Then it is also not Father Manuel Burgos because he's the nephew of Jose Burgos, one of the Gomborza. He's the one who helped Rizal to be admitted in Ateneo. Now let's proceed to the next question. It is an act to include in the curricula of all public and private schools, colleges, and universities courses on the life, works, and writings of Rizal, particularly his novels, No Le Tangere and El Filibusterismo, authorizing the printing and distribution thereof and for other purposes. Now, what article was it? Is it A, RA 1225, or B, RA 1325, or C, RA 1425, or letter D, RA 1525? Yes, it is C, RA 1425. Now, what is RA 1425 or the article 1425? Now, RA 1425 is an act to include in the curricula of all public and private schools, colleges, and universities courses in the life, works, and writings of Jose Rizal, particularly by his novels No Le Tangere and El Filibusterismo, authorizing the printing and distribution thereof and for other purposes. Now, to further explain the RA 1425, it is the Rizal Law, also known as the Rizal Law, which mandates the inclusion of courses on the life, works, and writings of Jose Rizal, particularly his novels, the No Le Tangere and El Filibusterismo. And it is also enacted on June 12, 1956. The law aims to cultivate patriotism and nationalism among Filipino students by familiarizing them with Rizal's contribution to the nation's history and identity. So it is not RA 1225 because it grants a franchise the La Union Electric Co. Inc. for an electric light, heat, and power system in a certain municipalities of La Union according to the Supreme Court Library. Then it is also not RA 1325 because it states that it makes the positions of mayor or vice mayor and members of the Municipal Board of Cagayan de Oro City elective. Then it is also not RA 1525 because it states that it converts the city of Mambanan in Palawan into a barrio. Now, what inspired Rizal to write Noli Me Tangere? Is it A. Count of Monte Cristo, B. Child of Sorrow, C. His mother, or D. Uncle Tom's Cabin? Yes, it is letter D. Uncle Tom's Cabin. So, who is Uncle Tom's Cabin, or what is the story of Uncle Tom's Cabin? So, Uncle Tom's Cabin is an 1852 anti-slavery novel by American author Harriet Beecher Stowe. It depicts the harsh realities of slavery in the United States, focusing the life of Uncle Tom, a devout and kind enslaved man, and the various people he encounters along his journey. The novel follows the journey of Uncle Tom, a devout Christian slave, as he endures various hardships and encounters different individuals within the slave system. Stowe's graphic depiction of the physical and emotional suffering inflicted upon enslaved people, coupled with her sympathetic portrayal of their faith and resilience, profoundly impacted public opinion in both the United States and abroad. This novel credited the significantly boistering abolitionist movement and also intensifying the debate over slavery that ultimately contributed to the outbreak of American Civil War. It is not the Count of Monte Cristo because this novel, with its themes of revenge and injustice, might have subtly influenced Rizal's narrative style or his depiction of certain characters' motivations. However, Noli Me Tangere's core theme, the critique of Spanish colonial oppression in the Philippines, is distinctly different from Dumas' tale of personal vengeance. While the structure and pacing might share some similarities, and under the message is vastly different. Also, it is not The Child of Sorrow. It's because this novel by a fellow Filipino might have provided Rizal with a sense of shared national identity and literary precedent of tackling social issues within a Filipino context. However, it's unlikely to have been defining inspiration for the specific plot and characters of Noli Me Tangere. It's more probable that it contributed to Rizal's awareness of the power of literature to address social ills. Then also, it is not his mother. It's because Rizal's mother, Chidora Alonzo, was a strong and influential figure in his life. Her influence likely shaped his moral compass and instilled him a sense of justice and compassion. And it is actually crucial in understanding Noli Me Tangere. It's because as the novel is imbued with a deep sense of empathy for the suffering of the Filipino people. However, his mother's direct influence was more about his overall worldview and values rather than a specific plotline or character inspiration for the novel. Now let's proceed to the next rationalized question. Now, who provided the funds that Rizal needed to get the Noli Me Tangere published? Did A. Valentin Ventura, B. Antonio Luna, C. Maximo Viola, or D. Jose Ma Basa? Yes, it is letter C. Maximo Viola. Now, who is Maximo Viola? Viola, in 1857 to 1915, was a Filipino ophthalmologist and also a close friend of Jose Rizal. He's best known for his significant contribution to the publication of Rizal's groundbreaking novel, Noli Me Tangere. And also, Maximo Viola's importance in Philippine history stems from his crucial role in the publication of Jose Rizal's Noli Me Tangere, which also, again, the close friend of Jose Rizal and the Filipino people, Viola provided Rizal with the financial support necessary to print the novel in Europe. Without Viola's generous contribution, the publication of his groundbreaking work, which played a significant part in the growing movement for Philippine reform, might not have been possible. This act of generosity cemented Viola's place as a key figure in the events surrounding the birth of modern Philippine nationalism and literature. His support for Jose Rizal's work demonstrates a commitment to the cause of Philippine reform and highlights the collaborative nature of the movement towards independence. The reason why it is not Valentin Ventura, it's because Valentin Ventura was a friend of Rizal and a fellow Filipino living in Europe. While he later significantly aided in the publication of El Filibusterismo, there's no evidence suggesting he was directly approached for funding Noli Me Tangere. His financial contributions to Rizal's later work demonstrate his support for Rizal's cause, but the timing and circumstances differed significantly. While also Antonio Luna, a renowned Filipino journal and scientist who was not yet a prominent figure in the reform movement during the publication of Noli Me Tangere, it's because his involvement in the fight for the Philippine independence came later. It's highly unlikely to have been a source of funding at the time or even in a position to provide substantial financial assistance. Then it is not also Jose Mabasa because he was a significant figure in the Filipino community in Europe and a known supporter of Rizal. However, he was also facing his own financial constraints and challenges in supporting the bargaining reform movement while he provided some financial support to Rizal at other times. And also it's possible that he was unable or unwilling to commit the considerable funds required to the entire publication of Noli Me Tangere. The publication required a substantial sum and Basa's resources were stretched thin in supporting various aspects of the reform movement. Now let's proceed to the next rationalized question. The famous great triumvirate of the propaganda movement was composed of the reformists reformed the propaganda movement and used their pen to expose the abuses of the Spaniards. Now, which of the following does not belong to the group of reformists? Is it A. Dr. Jose Rizal, B. Emilio Aguinaldo, C. Marcelo H. del Pilar, or D. Graciano Lopez Jaina? Yes, it is letter B. Emilio Aguinaldo. Now, why is it not Emilio Aguinaldo? Now, Emilio Aguinaldo does not belong to this group of reformists because, while Emilio Aguinaldo was a significant figure in Philippine history in the fight for independence during the Philippine Revolution, he was not part of the propaganda movement. The propaganda movement pursued reforms within the Spanish colonial system, while Aguinaldo and the revolutionaries ultimately sought complete independence from Spain. Emilio Aguinaldo's inclusion of the propaganda movement highlights a crucial difference in approach to the achieving Philippine self-determination. And also the propaganda movement primarily composed the intellectuals and writers advocate for reforms within the existing Spanish colonial system. They believed that gradual reforms could eventually lead to greater autonomy and better conditions for Filipinos. Aguinaldo, on the other hand, he represented a more radical approach. So he is not Jose Rizal because his novels Noli Me Tangere and Filibusterismo serve as powerful indictments of Spanish colonial abuses. His intellectual stature and international recognition gave the movement significant credibility. Well, it is also not Marcelo H. del Pilar, it's because he is a skilled writer and journalist. He served as a key editor of La Solidaridad, the movement's newspaper. His sharp wit and satirical writings effectively exposed the hypocrisy and corruption of the friars and colonial authorities. Well, he's also not Graciano Lopez Jaina because he's a gifted orator. He delivered powerful speeches that rallied support for the reform movement. His eloquent prose and persuasive arguments resonated with both Filipinos and some sympathetic Spaniards. Now, during their discussion of the Noli Me Tangere, the students debated on the identity of the Filipino. During much of the Spanish occupation, how were the natives of the Philippines called? A. Principalia, B. Indios, C. Insulares, or D. Peninsulares? Yes, it is letter B. Indios. Now, what is Indios? Or why is it Indios? Because Indios, the term Indios was the most common way to refer to the native Filipino population during the Spanish colonial period. It was a term that reflected the colonial power dynamic and the subordinate stature of the indigenous people. The use of Indios served to establish and reinforce subordinate status of the Filipinos within the Spanish colonial system. It carried with the connotations of inferiority, otherness, and a lack of full humanity in the eyes of the Spanish colonizers. The term's usage, the Spanish claim to superiority and the Filipinos' perceived subservience, the very act of labeling the Filipino as Indios was a way of defining and limiting their identity within the colonial framework. So it is not the Principalia because this term refers to the elite of class of Filipinos. They were the wealthy and the influential members of society, often collaborating with the Spanish colonial administration, and they were not a term of the general population. It is also not insulares because this term refers to the Filipinos born in the Philippines but of Spanish descent. They were not considered natives in the same way as those of purely Filipino ancestry. Also, it is not peninsulares. It's because this refers to Spaniards born in Spain and residing in the Philippines. They were the highest social class in the colony and held significant political and economic power, and they were not Filipinos. Now arrange the following events chronologically from the first to the last. So we have here the first one, the execution of Gomburza, the second, formal education in Ateneo and UST, the third, execution by firing squad in Bagong Bayan, the fourth, the birth in Calamba, and the fifth, completion of Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo. Now, do the first to the last. So, A, 4, 1, 2, 5, 3, or is it B, 4, 2, 5, 1, 3, or is it C, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5, or letter D, 2, 1, 4, 5, 3? Yes, it is letter A, 4, 1, 2, 5, 3. Now let's see why is it letter A. So it is letter A. So we have here the first one, the number 4, birth in Calamba. And we have here the second at the first, the 1, execution of Gomburza. Then we follow the number 2, formal education in Ateneo and UST. Then followed by number 5, completion of Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo. Then lastly, followed by number 3, execution by firing squad in Bagong Bayan. So let us see why is it 4, 1, 2, 5, 3. Why is it number 4 in the first? Because completion of Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, Rizal published Noli Me Tangere in 1887 and El Filibusterismo in 1891. These novels expose the abuses of the Spanish government and clergy furthering the Philippine nationalist movement. Now, why is it number 1 in the second? Because Jose Rizal was born on June 19, 1861 in Calamba, Laguna. Now, how about number 2? Why is it in number 3 or in the third place? Because execution of Gomburza, the execution of Fathers Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora happened on February 17, 1872. This event profoundly influenced Rizal's sense of nationalism as he grew up. Then, how about number 5 in the fourth place? It's because execution by firing squad in Bagong Bayan. Rizal was executed on December 30, 1896 in Bagong Bayan, and also was accused of sedition and rebellion against Spanish rule. This tragic event marked the culmination of his life and legacy. Now, how about number 3? Why is it in the last place or in the fifth place? Because formal education in Ateneo and UST, Rizal began his studies in Ateneo de Manila and later enrolled in the University of Santo Tomas, or UST. His Ateneo education started in 1872, shortly after the Gomborza execution, while his UST education followed in the late 1870s. It is not B, C, and D. It's because of the wrong correct order of the year, because the first one is 1861, then to be followed by the 2 is 1872, then number 3 is 1872 also, then the number 4 is 1887, the number 5 is 1896. Let's proceed to the next rationalized question. What is the symbolism of Vapor Tabo in the first chapter of El Filibusterismo? Is it A, social class divide, B, water pollution in Pasig River, or C, arrival of the Americans, or D, love of the Spanish for fancy things? Yes, it is letter A, social class divide. Now, why is it social class divide? In the first chapter of El Filibusterismo, the Vapor Tabo symbolizes the social inequalities and injustices prevalent in Philippine society under Spanish colonial rule. The cramped and uncomfortable conditions aboard the ship for the lower classes, in contrast to the relative comfort afforded to the upper classes, highlight the vast social class divide. In the social class divide, the contrasting experiences of passengers from different social classes aboard the ship vividly illustrate the deep chasm separating the wealthy elite from the impoverished masses. While the upper classes enjoy relative comfort and privilege, the lower classes are subjected to cramped, unsanitary, and generally inhumane conditions. This disparity mirrors the broader societal structure, where the wealthy, often those with the ties to colonial power, enjoyed significant advantages, while the majority of Filipinos suffer under the poverty and oppression. So it is not water pollution in Pasig River, because while the Pasig River's condition might have been contemporary concern, Rizal's focus in El Filibusterismo is broader. The Vapor Tabo's dilapidated state and slow movement symbolize a deeper societal malaise and not merely environmental issues. Also, it is not the arrival of the Americans, because the Vapor Tabo appears in the novel's opening chapter long before the American colonization of the Philippines. The symbolism is firmly rooted in the existing conditions under Spanish rule. Then it is also not love of the Spanish for fancy things, because the description of the Vapor Tabo highlights the disparity between the upper and lower decks. The upper deck, occupied by wealthy Spaniards and foreigners, represents luxury and privilege, while the lower deck, filled with impoverished Filipinos, represents hardships. The disparity reflects societal inequality and not simply a preference for luxury. Now, the historic waterway Suez Canal, which was traversed by Rizal for 5 days, was constructed by the famous Frenchman named, is it A, Ferdinand Magellan, B, Ferdinand de Lesseps or Lesseps, C, Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, or D, Juan de Salcedo? Yes, it is letter B, Ferdinand de Lesseps. Now, why is it Ferdinand de Lesseps, or who is Ferdinand de Lesseps? Ferdinand de Lesseps, in 1805 to 1894, was a French diplomat and engineer best known for his role in the construction of the Suez Canal. His successor of the massive undertaking made him a celebrated figure internationally. Ferdinand de Lesseps' fame rests primarily on his pivotal role in the construction of the Suez Canal. His diplomatic skills and engineering expertise proved instrumental in overcoming numerous obstacles to complete this ambitious project, which dramatically shortened sea routes between Europe and Asia. The Suez Canal's successful completion transformed global trade and cemented de Lesseps' reputation as visionary and highly capable engineer. His accomplishment earned him international acclaim and recognition as a pioneer of large-scale and engineering projects. The Suez Canal stands as a testament to his leadership, organizational ability, and determination in the face of significant challenges. So it is not Ferdinand Magellan, is not because he's a Portuguese explorer. Also, it is not Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, it's because he's a Spanish explorer and a first governor in the Philippines. Also, it is not Juan Salcedo, it's because he's a Spanish conquistador and grandson of Miguel Lopez de Legazpi. Now, when did Rizal leave for Spain to complete his university studies and improve his knowledge of arts and sciences and his God-given talents? Now, is it A, May 3, 1880, B, May 3, 1881, C, May 3, 1882, or D, May 3, 1883? Yes, it is C, May 3, 1882. Now, why is it C, May 3, 1882? 3, 1882, because the date when Rizal left the Philippines for the first time to complete his studies in Spain. The May 3, 1882 also marks the date of Basa Rizal's left in the Philippines for the first time. This departure was a significant turning point in his life and in Philippine history. He embarked on the journey to continue his studies in Spain, specifically at the Universidad Central de Madrid, aiming to pursue a degree in ophthalmology. However, his time in Spain extended beyond formal academics. It was a period of intense intellectual and political awakening for Rizal. He immersed himself in European culture and politics, witnessing firsthand the freedoms and advancements of Western societies, which contrasted sharply with the conditions of his homeland under Spanish colonial rule. So it is not May 3, 1880, 1881, and 1883. It's because Jose Rizal's departure for Spain to pursue his studies and develop his talents actually took place on May 3, 1882. The years 1880, 1881, 1883 are not associated with his departure. There is no historical evidence suggesting he planned to or attempt to leave for Spain during those years. His decision to leave in 1882 was a result of several factors converging at the time. So, the unsatisfactory of education in the Philippines on Rizal's experience at the University of Santo Tomas in Manila were less than ideal. He faced discrimination as a Filipino student and found the curriculum and teaching methods inadequate. He sought a superior educational environment in Spain. Also, Rizal's intellectual curiosity extended beyond that was offered in the Philippines. He aimed to gain a more comprehensive education in arts, sciences, and other fields that Spain could provide. Also, Rizal sought to hone his talents, writings, art, leadership to better serve his countrymen. He believed a European education would help him achieve this goal. Also, while not his primary reason for leaving at the time, his trip to Spain became a pivotal step in his eventual involvement with the propaganda movement. He sought to build connections and gain knowledge that would aid his reformist efforts. Now let's proceed to the last question for the rationalized question, which is, where was Rizal buried after his execution at Bagong Bayan on December 30, 1896? Is it A, Calamba, Laguna, B, Fort Santiago, C, Libingan ng mga Bayani, or D, Sementeryo ng Paco? Yes, it is letter D, Sementeryo ng Paco. Now, what is Sementeryo ng Paco? Sementeryo ng Paco, after his execution, Rizal was secretly buried in the Paco Cemetery in Manila. And also his burial was unmarked to prevent his grave from becoming a rallying point for nationalist sentiment. His remains were later transferred to a monument in Luneta Park. This clandestine burial was a deliberate attempt by the Spanish colonial authorities to prevent his grave from becoming a site of veneration and rallying point of Filipino nationalists. They feared that an easily identifiable burial place would transform into a symbol of resistance, and a fuel of further would transform into revolutionary activity. And however, Rizal's legacy proved too powerful to suppress completely. Eventually, his remains were exhumed and transferred to a monument in Luneta Park, now which is called the Rizal Park. So it is not in Calamba, Laguna. It's because this was Rizal's hometown. While it would have been a fitting resting place for them, the Spanish authorities wanted to avoid any potential rallying point for nationalists. A burial in Calamba would have been highly symbolic, potentially inflammatory. And also it is not Fort Santiago because this was a Spanish military prison where Rizal was held before his execution. It was a place of confinement and suffering, not a place of honor for a national hero. And it is also not the libingan ng mga bayani. It's because this national cemetery was established much of later in 1947, long after Rizal's death, and it was not an option at the time of his execution.